Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the Draxx Life Podcast, where we'll chat about some of the weird and the wondrous. Let's get to the show. And we are live again.
Yeah, baby.
Back. It's funny. I'm always like a little tired. I'm like, I don't really want to. I'm like, not. Then I see the countdown, 3, 2, 1, and I'm like, ooh, ready. I got invigorated, like a shot of Red Bull straight to the main line.
No, like the adrenaline shot in Pulp Fiction, right to Uma Thurman's chest.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
how I feel.
Exactly. So what's going on? I mean, I know you got a little prep. I think you're gonna be throwing some interesting topics our way,
Yeah.
but
well,
dude,
first of all,
hit me.
My week was. I mean, this could be a product of me getting older, but because I'm in an industry where the holidays are very important and very busy, so you got the Thanksgiving buildup into the Black Friday, into the Cyber Monday, and now into the early Christmas shopping season.
Yeah,
I've never been more physically drained after 5 straight days of work than I am right now. Mentally, because you always get the mental draining because you're constantly using your brain when you're at work, or you should be.
Well, it's also it's the stress too, right? Like it's I mean, dude, I give you a lot of props because I remember doing the holiday rush in the Apple
retail
store.
In retail, yeah.
And I mean, if there's retail, and then like the Apple store is like you got endless lines. I think there was one year they had a phone launch or some type of product launch around the holidays, and yeah, dude, that takes a lot out of you, like mentally, emotionally, and then obviously physically running up and down steps. And
yeah, so now for me, so there's a guy called, I think I sent you a video of him. He was on the original Apprentice, not the celebrity one, the one where Donald Trump was the guy.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And he's English. He's called Tom Skinner, and he runs his own grocery store. You know who I'm talking about.
I don't know. I'm looking him up right literally as we're talking.
Tom Skinner. He runs his own grocery store in London, in southeast London, or East London more, actually.
Yeah, Thomas Henry Skinner. Very
British.
Go ahead.
Very English name. Yeah, and he goes to the same cafe every Monday morning and every Friday morning. So, but now he owns a grocery store, independent, so not franchised, and he also is an online influencer now. So he's across all the platforms. That's where he got really famous. And he goes, we locked up the warehouse, we parked up all the vans, we locked up off the computers, and now it's in time to join the weekend. That's how I felt. Like I was drained. He was like, we grafted double hard. I'm drained. I'm tired. But now we get to enjoy it. We put in the work. We believed in ourselves. We put in all the work. And now we get to enjoy the weekend. That's how I felt yesterday. Because I was outside of exercising and playing sports, this last night, I've never felt more physically fatigued from a week of work. Ever. Because it's like me. I'm in the warehouse. I'm parking up the vans, the lifts, and I got to shut off all the computers. Then I can go and I can relax. Yeah,
and also you work late too, so it's like
I work till like 10 o'clock.
Yeah, so it's like winding it down, and then you're hitting the bus or
so I felt like Tom Skinner, but you could see how happy he is once the end of the week is. But it harkens back to what we were saying before. I'm only living for the weekend now. I got to change that.
I mean, dude, that's a lot of people. I mean, I think that's maybe, dude, I love how we just kind of like.
There's a theme to the season.
We also flow like into, because now I'm going to say is like, yeah, I think that also is kind of like why people who have like families, like there's another positive in that category. Because it's like you go home and then you spend time with your family. Whereas like if you're not going to go get hammered on a Tuesday night when you got to go to work the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't, right? Like, there's only so many of those Tuesday nights.
I could do that when I was 23. I did do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it's like, you're living till the weekend where you can do that because you get a day of recovery.
Hmm.
Otherwise, but like if you have a family, it's like, oh no, I go and like I do this and it's not necessarily fun, but then I go home and spend time with people I like. But yeah,
Yeah.
dude, that guy, I thought he was older. Like he's 33. I gotta look him up now.
Yeah, no, he's pretty cool. He's funny too.
Dude, it's like people who run restaurants. Like it's kind of that interesting game where you work in like a high stress environment where it's like
Hmm.
you have no time to think and you're just like hustling, and then the day is over and it's like deep breath and like that's why these guys go and they need to unwind for like 3 hours at like from like 11 to 3 a.m. just to like chill and relax and like deep compress after like a rush of all of this, like all of these people coming in, or if you're working at a high-end restaurant where it's like you have to be
Hmm.
precise and controlled. And yeah, I mean, I get it as much as I
Yeah,
can.
yeah, you're right. So during this period, I would say mid-November to the beginning of Jan, right after New Year's,
Oh yeah,
it's retail and food industry. Those two
dying.
are just,
Yeah,
you're working nonstop.
dude, I heard some crazy thing. It was like for retail across the board, they make like so much, like the goal, like for a lot of retail, especially like smaller retail, they count on these like less than 3 months to make like close to 50% or more of their
Hmm.
for the year. Like it's kind of a crazy thing if you think about it. Like they live and die by these, let's say, 3 months leading up to the holidays. And then it's like if they have a bad 3 months, like that might make their whole year. Like there's no way they can make up for it with the remaining 9 months. So it's kind of a crazy thing that like these 3 months, especially in like Western countries, like will make or break you. And that's why you feel it. Like I think when we worked at Apple, like even management is kind of like they put a little bit extra oomph in like trying to get you out there hustling because they actually know the numbers. They're like, shit, we got to hit this number this season or we're going to be in a bad way. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, this is the most important time. I think
Yeah.
I could be mistaken, but in the financial sector, this is Q1. Am I wrong? I think this is. I don't think it's Q4.
I think you're right. Let's
I,
just let's
I
just like
think
always
it
get
is.
up. Let's say what is Q1 of
Mm,
20? I guess it would be
in like
2020.
Wall Street financial terms. Yeah.
So like Q1 is January. It's January 1st. It
Oh,
literally
all
the
right. It is.
first of the month.
Okay.
So this is you're ending Q4.
Okay.
But I
Uh,
think for retail, it's kind of like
yeah. So
this is important. Like it's almost like this is in their mind the first of the year. You're
yeah,
probably right about that.
this is the launch pad to the next financial
Yeah.
year. Correct.
Because
Yeah.
if they die this holiday season, like they're gonna have to hustle to try to make up that like deficit in
Yeah.
in Q1 of 2025.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. All right. But
Listening
but how was your week?
to
Just chilling. You were.
dude, just like working on some things. Dude, it's funny. I almost for a second I thought like you might not be able to do today because I there's some mystery stuff going on in the background that we're all
Yes.
waiting with bated breath to find out about for
It
you.
will. It'll. The story will be told.
Yeah.
Trust me.
So anyway, I was like, all right, maybe he's got something going on. I'm like trying to think of some ideas to talk about. And I was going to talk if you weren't here. I was like, I'll do the episode by myself, which I think would be kind of difficult. But I was like, what will I talk about? And I was going to talk about like entrepreneurship and just kind of like what that experience has been like. Because like each week, I don't feel like I'm getting that much done. But I'm wondering if I am getting stuff done. It's just like a weird feeling when you have a job, you just know, like with what you're doing, kind of like back of house in the retail space, right?
Yeah.
You know it. It's like, oh shit, man, I got 8 hours and like I got to get this checklist things have done. Like there's no like, what do I need to get done? It's like, boom, it's here. And then the battle is just like, I need to get all of this done. Like ideally before the end of the day. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the race is like just checking it all off, getting it done. And just like getting into a flow so you can just like kind of zone out and just work with what, when you're the one building the checklist and you haven't like hardened the system, a lot of it's just like, it's asking questions and like trying to pull threads. So it's just like both are, I guess, difficult in a way, but it's just like it's a different feel than like, all right, I got to bang out like these 10 tasks, and I know what these 10 tasks are Monday to Friday. So yeah, I was gonna like maybe like pontificate on that experience a
Yeah,
little
you
bit.
could. I would like to talk about that at some
It
point.
might be
But
fun, yeah.
yeah, but you're right, because from on my angle, from an operations, business conduct, compliance, asset management side
Yeah.
on the back end,
Yep.
because I don't face the members. I'm the back end. So, but like you said, I always have like task 1, check off. Task 2, check off. This has a deadline of 2 days. All right, I got a little bit of time for that, but I got to check that off by Wednesday. That's how my brain like attacks
Yeah.
these.
Well, and I
It's
like
this goal. It's like goal oriented. That's what I
well,
do.
and I like how you use the word operations. I didn't
Yeah,
think about that. But you're right. It's like when you are that's like it's kind of interesting when we worked at Juno together, right? So like that
yeah,
was our first foray in working in a startup. And it's like we were in effect kind of like operations slash like customer facing, let's call it
but
that,
we were
right?
also like technical support too,
Yeah.
all at the same time.
But
Yeah,
like we are it's like someone else is deciding like the operation,
hmm
right? And then it's been disseminated to us and it's like, okay,
that's
now
right.
implement this thing or do this thing, follow this script, do these tasks, right? So it's like that's interesting. So now I'm kind of like in my own small way, I'm on the other side of that curtain where it's like, okay, like what is the system or what is the script or what are the tasks that I need to do, because in this case I'm kind of both sides of the curtain, or
hmm
like I got to find someone to do, right? So it's like interesting because it's different. Like when you are the one doing tasks, that's a pain because you're like, all right, this guy's telling me to do these things, I got to do them, I got to get them all done. But also it's just as kind of difficult on the other side when you're like, all right, the page is blank, we got to fill this up with some like we got to create a system here. So it's interesting because I've never been on that side of the equation before.
Yeah, see, that's the part that interests me, because even though I have a bit of a supervisory role now where I have to delegate, um, it's not the level of being like you're the boss. Basically,
Yeah,
I have directives from above that and things that need to be met, but I can delegate it to certain people. But I do the brunt of it. But you're the head honcho, man. That's
yeah, and I mean, and again, like anyone listening, like I'm not like
no,
this
no,
is
no,
like
yeah, yeah.
early days.
This
Like
is
I
yeah.
don't, it's not like I have like employees or anything,
Mm,
but it's just like even in my small way, like I understand like when people do like a scale. So like now think about if you're going to do a startup that where you
mm-hmm,
had a few
mm-hmm.
$1 million investment. It's like it's the same equation, right? Because there's no, you're the one trying to figure out like you have a white canvas, and now you're like, okay, like what are we going to put on this canvas? How are we going to put it? What is it going to look like? What are the steps that we're going to follow? And like no one can really tell you how to do that. Like Uber and like Lyft are essentially the same company, but they both had blank canvases, and like I would imagine like even Lyft couldn't be like, oh, let's just copy like Uber's painting. No, like the paintings look similar, but like the act of painting that picture is like probably was very different, right? And different systems and different plans and procedures and things of that nature. So it's kind of interesting. Like it's kind of fun, but like we talked about, and we can kind of cut it off here, but like
Mm-hmm.
there is like the pro and the con. Like even now, like I'm thinking like, okay, I need to go get a job again, and there's to some degree in the back of my head, like I don't want to do that, but there's also some like relief in that because it's like, all right, someone else go figure out what needs to be done. You tell me what to do, I'll get it done. I get paid, right? There's no like if you don't tell me what to do, I don't do anything. Whereas when
Right.
you're on the other side of that coin, it's like if you don't come up with the questions to ask and the plan, like you're dead in the water. You ain't going nowhere. And it's not like you can say, "Oh, well, I'm going to cruise until, Friday when I get paid." It's like, "No, we're not going to get paid." So it is kind of like when you
Right.
listen to
Right. Right.
people like that guy that you just mentioned, the
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Skinner. I bet you he has some interesting content because like grocery stores, that's a hard business. And like,
Mm-hmm.
he's at the top and like he sees like if we don't do a good job, he's gonna feel it. So like it is an interesting it's an interesting game to be on that side of the curtain.
Yeah, because from a creative standpoint, you have to generate the strategy exactly.
Yeah, and if you
So,
don't, it's like you can't blame anyone. You can't be like, oh well, my boss didn't tell me what to do, so I didn't do it. It's like, oh, there's no,
Right.
I can't turn over my left shoulder and be like, oh, that guy. No, like you're the last one in that list, that chain.
Yeah, and it goes back to where you were saying earlier, the like a couple of weeks ago, where it's I collect the check either way. So if there's a day where it's slow and I just like
Yeah,
just basically I'm gonna say what it is, just dick around,
yeah.
I'm still gonna get paid.
Well, and
So yeah,
there's no
yeah,
problem with that if you don't got any
yeah.
work to do, right? Or let's say
Mhm.
you're after the holiday season, there's a lull,
It's
and you're
gonna be
just
slow. Yeah.
you're just chilling, like you've done all of your. We did it at Apple. Like there's some days you've done all the work. There's nothing to do. Like it's not even like you're dicking around. It's just like literally I'm here for 8 hours and I have nothing to do. There's no one here. There's 15 people working. There's one customer. So
Yeah.
what am I? I'm gonna be on the computer like poking around, right?
Mhm.
But the person who's at the top of the food chain is like, holy crap, there's only one person here. Like this can't happen. How do we get like 15 more people here? Right. So like their brain can't shut down because if it does, they die, like
Right.
metaphorically speaking. So
Mhm.
I don't know. That's why you see these guys who are like multi-billionaires and it's like, dude, retire. Like, what are you doing, man? Like you have a family, you have kids, like
Yeah, but they love doing it. That's why.
correct. And I think it gets into competition where you're just like, how do I, it becomes like war, right? Like, how do I win? There's this guy, I'm
It's a
Uber.
little bit
Oh,
like that. Yeah.
Lyft is coming behind me. What the heck? How do we like defeat them?
We must
And it
crush
becomes
them.
that. Correct.
Yeah.
That's why I like, the stereotype of like these like entrepreneurs and it's like they talk with like almost like generals. Cause in a sense, it's not that it is the same. It's like, countries fighting each other and like companies fighting each other. It's just like quote unquote a more civilized form of warfare. They don't kill each other. They just try to take all of another person's livelihood away. So I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of is warfare without violence. So like the people at the top, they're strategizing just like generals. It's just that like the end result isn't mass slaughter. It's just like let me remove all of your customers so that your business ceases to exist and you ride off to the sunset in despair. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's funny. So anyway, yeah, that's
Yeah.
my little
No.
tirade.
Yeah. It's all good. But the week is over, so we move on to more fun things.
Yes. Now we
So
talk about the deep and wonderful world of Nietzsche.
yeah, Nietzsche. And I'm glad that they both pronounced it correctly. You corrected yourself because I was going to crash out
I
on
know.
you.
I was like, I know that's wrong. I
Uh-huh.
know better than that.
So there's a podcast right before the election,
Oh, so
and
it was okay. It was before the
it
election.
was like right before the
Oh,
election. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so Lex Friedman, who's pretty famous, I like him. He's Russian Jewish. He was born during the Soviet Union, but they defected once it fell, and they moved to the United States. I believe it was Chicago, and his father is a physicist, I believe. So then he got
Yeah.
into the sciences, but he became an engineer. He's a computer engineer.
He's a
So
computer.
he's like your world.
Yeah, he's a
Or
computer scientist that
yeah,
specializes, I believe, in like robotics and artificial intelligence.
yeah, and he got super famous because Elon Musk read one of his works and praised it. He was talking about Tesla. Do you know about this?
No, I was no, no. Go ahead.
So he got the reason why he um, gained such a big following, and now I think I don't think he does science as much as he hosts his show now.
Yeah,
It's a
I think so.
podcast. Yeah. And it's funny, he lives in Austin, so he's with Theo and Joe and all of them. He moved to Austin too.
Yeah, he's in that universe.
He's in
now.
that crew. Yeah, but he's a different breed. He's not a comedian. He's very brilliant. He's our age, man. He's like a little bit older than us.
Yeah, he's
like
40,
42,
41, 42. Yeah.
yeah, early 40s. And he his entire family fled the collapsing Soviet Union and went to Chicago. And now he has a big podcast, and he got famous because he wrote something about Tesla, like the self-driving cars, like the concept of the self-driving cars.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk commented on it, and he's like, I really like this guy. Like, who is it? Basically, he read it and he was like, who is this guy? I need to talk to him. And that's how he's Elon. Imagine having Elon Musk on your show 4 times. He's already had Elon 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, I know the one. I think, yeah, because I listen to Lex Friedman
Yeah.
periodically, and I mean, I think also he did a pretty good job early on. Is he got, however, he did. Maybe this answers one of those questions,
Yeah.
but he got like some key people on his podcast early on,
Yeah.
and then it kind of like since then he's become kind of like, I'm gonna use loosely, like the Joe Rogan of like science, more like computer science. He has a lot of like tech people on that are like the top of the food chain of like tech entrepreneurship and like AI and science. That was like his core. And then I think as time has gone on, because he seems pretty like
He's a pretty
broad in
cool
his
guy. Yeah.
interests, like he's had like more people in more like the social sciences, and he's had like comedians on and
Mm-hmm.
so forth and so on. But yeah, he got like Elon Musk on pretty early. I think he had Joe Rogan on like pretty early, and then from there he's had Bezos. I thought his interview with Bezos was like very, very interesting. um he had the prime minister of Israel on his show. He had the president of Argentina recently on his show, which I highly recommend if anyone gets a chance to listen to it. And he has interesting people, and he has
Yeah.
pretty good conversations.
Yeah, exactly. He has a lot of world leaders and
Yeah.
high like tech people. That's most of it, but like you said, he'll have a musician on or
Yeah.
a comedian. So
Dude,
it's
hold
good.
on. One crazy thing to think about right now is like, dude, it is a very fascinating like world that we live in, that like you can like it is to me, it's fascinating. Like, for I'm gonna just say that he's a regular random person, right? Like, I don't think he's backed by anyone, but like the fact that like you can live in a world where you can get enough views where like the president of Israel will fly into America to have a conversation with, for argument's sake, for lack of better, a nobody. Like, he's a known person, but like he's not a diplomat, he's not a dignitary, he's a research scientist who hasn't invented anything. He's not like an entrepreneur. Like, the fact is that he just puts on a show where he has interesting conversations, and that someone who's a historical figure, right, would be willing to fly in and like have a conversation with him. Like, it's just amazing. It's kind of interesting. Like, I don't know. That's fascinating to me. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm gonna call it how it is. If he was Gentile, I don't think he would have done that. If he was,
If
is
he was
be
Gentile.
if him being of the Jewish faith,
Well, I mean, I'm just using him as
helps that
I'm just
the
using him as
Israel coming over.
I'm just using him as an example. Like, the fact that he's had the Argentinian president on, who has probably been on less American programs than like
I don't think he's
anyone.
been on any. Yeah.
So like, no, like,
Yeah,
mean,
I
he
was
was
half
on,
joking, by the way, but it
yeah,
is a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It
but
was a
like
little.
I think like he's had Bezos, he's had a lot of interesting people. And I guess the fact it's like the Joe Rogan phenomenon. Like, the fact that like a guy who's just a guy with a microphone and who is genuinely himself for the most part is able to, due to just sheer popularity, like attract, like, where the eyes are, people will go. There's a reason why that the Israeli prime minister went on his show. It's less about Israel, that I think he's Jewish. It's a fact of like, this guy, when he puts on a show, 1 million people are going to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's kind of crazy that these independent shows have more viewership than like mainstream cable television.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's
That's
why they
huge.
go on them shows, because they're like, 1 million eyes, or 1 million times 2 eyes, right? 1 million people are going to watch this. That's like incredible if you think about it. Like, if you really think about it, that is incredible, because that there's no gatekeeper. That's just a person with an internet connection and a microphone. Like, that's insane to me. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no,
I
that's right.
interrupted your flow.
I'm not trying to knock Lex Friedman's talents in his show, but I would say the Israeli prime minister coming over, I would say Lex Friedman being a practicing Jewish person helps that.
I don't think he's practicing Jew.
Or like being of the his
I mean,
parents were.
he's
His
of the
parents definitely.
tribe.
Yeah, his parents definitely were.
Yeah, I don't know how religious he is, but go ahead
Right,
anyway.
right. Yeah,
We
no,
digress.
yeah, but that definitely helps is what I'm saying. That's all I meant. But we all know I love that. We can move on. Yeah, because I respect the I think in terms of religion, I grew up Catholic, and then we'll get into the Christianity with Jordan Peterson, which is a good segue. But I think my favorite religion in the world is Judaism. I'm drawn to that more than I ever was to Catholicism.
I mean,
So
come on, bro. It's
that's
because
to say something.
you like the
Yeah,
Israeli women. Like,
it could be that. That's
let's,
probably a good part. It's the same thing. That's an element. That's a strong attraction. Yeah,
let's be honest here.
yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, you
what
go
do you?
ahead. Go ahead, because I did not watch this episode, but I know enough of. I've followed Jordan Peterson pretty closely, and
Yeah. So
I
let's talk about who Jordan Peterson. What do you know of Jordan Peterson?
so it's funny. Jordan Peterson really took off. Yeah, I know a fair amount actually. I can give kind of a. I
Yeah.
think let me do it right. So he came to original popularity pretty much over some Canadian laws that were taking. There was deliberation on putting into place certain laws that would force a person to respond via gender pronouns. So essentially, the laws were stating like if a man identifies as a woman, then like by law, theoretically, this is what they were arguing. Me, would have to talk to them and use the pronouns of which I wanted to identify with. So this was happening kind of in the backwoods of Canada, right? It wasn't like on the world stage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But Jordan Peterson kind of got involved in it. And at that time, Jordan Peterson, he was a clinical psychologist. And then he had become a professor, he was a teacher. And I think that was kind of like he was putting a lot of energy in. And one thing he did that was interesting is that he recorded all of his lectures. So they were kind of like readily available online. But for the most part, he was like not a known person except within like maybe his community or his particular occupation. But like when he heard these laws were taking effect or that they were deliberating over them, like he went like guns blazing because he saw them not as what they were, but essentially what they could be. And it was that like, here is a scenario where the government is essentially uh, putting laws into place that would control a person's free speech. Because if you think about it, in essence, like he was looking beyond the current law. He was pretty much saying if you can put into place a law that forces me to use a pronoun that I don't want to use, but if I don't use it, I can be like legally in trouble. Then essentially that law could be manipulated to force me to say or not say anything, right? It's like a slippery slope, right? If you go down that rabbit hole towards like mandating what you can and can't say, at some point someone can just warp that law to be whatever they want it to be. So like he was kind of raising the alarm bell saying, hey guys, like this is the slippery slope towards essentially losing your freedom of speech. And that's kind of
Yeah.
what put him on the world stage. And then from there, so just to summarize, he's become like call it like a public intellectual whose he's had different, I would say, epochs in his journey. Early on, it was more about like psychology and like, I would almost kind of characterize it as self-improvement. And then it's become a little bit over more time political, and then definitely political. And then
Yeah.
now it's
And
kind of
there's a
translated into like Christianity. He's
yeah.
kind of become I think he would identify himself in his words as like a person of Christian faith, though he might define that differently than other people. So yeah, that kind of takes us to where we're at right now.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's a good summary because he showed up to Lex's studio rocking a sport coat that had stained glass windows of I think the 12 stations of the cross on it. It's
Interesting.
the if you look at the smoking jacket, I would call it, because I can't even call it a suit jacket because it was all there was all artwork all over it. To call it a smoking jacket, and he it was all stained glass window paintings everywhere. So he's definitely rocking the Christianity hard for
Yeah,
sure.
Go ahead. One thing I
But
want to say is that I like, that someone listens to a lot of like international, particularly British TV and sports when they use the word "ruck up."
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
like the only time I hear that, I love that expression. But go
Yeah,
ahead,
when
go
you
ahead.
rock, yeah, rock up means you like showed up.
Yeah, I
Basically,
like this.
you entered the place. So he Peterson, who has a Peterson Academy, he has like a university. If I'm not mistaken, I think is it a
Yes.
college? Is it an accredited institution?
So yeah, dude, I like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, so because I was into Jordan Peterson like 10 years ago.
Mhm.
So it's kind of cool that we're talking about this now.
Mm.
So one of his like more recent projects was to create like
He has a
essentially
school. Yeah.
an alternative to a liberal arts degree. Um, so essentially, you get like a classical education, and it was supposed to be done in a way that was like very inexpensive but very high quality and with a high degree of rigor. And I believe they're in the. I don't know if they're currently accredited, but they're in the process. Like that's the goal. That essentially you could go there, and that education you would get a degree that would be considered like an accredited
Yeah,
liberal arts degree.
it's recognized in the academic community.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean that's what they're striving to accomplish, but I don't know if they have as of yet.
Yeah, I think what he was alluding to, but it's I think you can take courses online too,
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, I mean it's not a
Uh,
physical. I don't believe it's a
Now
physical
there
location.
is,
It's
yeah.
completely online.
All right, that I didn't know. I thought he had a building somewhere, but I think you're right. I think it might just be exclusively online.
Yeah, because they're
And
gathering like essentially the classes are done by like people who are like high up the food chain, right? But they're able to record and things like that. So it kind of like allows you to be watching like, taking a class on like, I don't know, Greek literature from someone who's like potentially the greatest Greek teacher of our generation, right? Because it's
yeah,
recorded and things like that. But
yeah,
go ahead.
he does have elite level professors in this. He does. And so he created there's a course that you can take in his school called the philosophy of the hammer, and that's where Nietzsche comes in. So it's basically based on a book written by Nietzsche, which is one of his best works called Beyond Good and Evil, which is an examination of human, like just human existence, like existentialism, which Nietzsche is one of the founding fathers of, and religion. Like, how does religious belief and faith interact with what it means to be a human being? All right. So, have you read Beyond Good and Evil? You would love that book.
So I have not
Yeah.
read any of Jordan Peterson's books. I've pretty
Either have
much
I. Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much have. Did I read 10 Rules for Life? Maps of Meaning was his first book. I think I've read some of it, but I haven't read most of his books. I follow, like, when he writes out a book, the years prior to it, he's pretty much doing all public lectures that are like chunks of it leading up to like the final product. But I haven't read this particular. This is his most recent book, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have not read it.
Yeah, no, I've never read any of his works. I've seen him bouncing around because I was first introduced to Jordan Peterson through Bill Maher years ago.
Ooh.
He goes on Bill Maher's show a lot. That's how I first found out about it. I was like, this guy's first of all, these two guys, Friedman and Peterson, the way they speak, you could just tell like these guys are just another level of intelligence, dude. They're both so smart.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean JP, I give JP a lot. I give him a lot of credit, but though I'll be honest with you, like to some degree, I feel like I don't want to say outgrown him is the right word because that's like very douchey to say,
yeah.
but like yeah. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I think he thinks the greatest thing is watching him when he does Q&A with people because someone's like very like I would say very intelligent when like most of us, myself included, right? When someone asks us a question, like you give an answer, right? But you don't really like take a moment to like go back to like the root of that question. And that's something I think is really interesting. When I used to watch Jordan Peterson do like Q&As on like a variety of subjects, when you ask him a question, it takes him a moment to answer it because he really gets to like the root of like that question. And I'll give you an example in the sense of like, let's say you were to say like, um, um, maybe it's like a political conversation on like like why communism is good or something. Let's just say that's the perspective you're going to take, right? Like he's going to like be like, okay, like what is the definition of good? What is the cultural orientation of good? Like, okay, at first I need to understand what does it mean to be good from a human perspective. And like he's gonna like you can see his mind going down that thread of like, okay, I gotta understand what is the good. And then he'll go down, okay, well, like socialism, and then like he just pulls everything so far apart that like when he gives you an answer, it's like he's actually answering your question and every question that had to take place for you to be able to answer your question. Like, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, it
it's like
does.
he goes to the root of even how you could have thought to
Yeah,
ask that
that's what I was
question.
gonna say.
And when you watch, it's like, oh shit. So when he gives you in the answer, you're like, that's amazing, because that's like you hit angles of that question that I wasn't even aware of when I asked it. And that's why you get a lot of college kids that ask him these questions, like a gotcha question. And then like his answer is just so multifaceted, has so many dimensions that it's like they're not even aware of the ramifications of the question they asked. And he actually like rephrases their question and shows them like you don't even understand like what you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what you're asking, and now here is this like brain dump of an answer. So yeah, I mean he's impressive. I used to love listening to him talk. What I don't like now is that like go ahead. I'm rambling.
No, I got that same impression. He's definitely a good lecturer.
Oh yeah.
As a professor, he would be. That's like a dream professor to have. Um,
Oh yeah, he's the type of professor you would like when you watch a movie and they have like, like what is the Dead Poet Society, like these kind of like iconic teachers.
Great movie.
Like he's like one of those teachers. Like you're going to go to his class and not even care what your grade is, cuz it's just like the opportunity to be in it and to like learn. Like purely just to learn. You get an F, it's like you're still going to learn.
Yeah,
Like you still got value out of it.
he has the ability to like hone your perception of
Yeah.
reality, which is we'll get into because that's one of the big things they talk about. So what he talks about with Nietzsche is what I agree with as a fan. I think Nietzsche is one of the best minds that we've seen in the modern world. And he said he was reading this book, Beyond Good and Evil. And Jordan said he usually earmarks the page, like he'll bend over the
Yeah.
corner of the page. And he's like, I didn't bend over a single corner of this book because every page was profound. That's how good this book is. And it's I would say it's intellectually condensed, and Nietzsche is good at being succinct, but when you open the box and unpack everything, it's that's why you need to read Nietzsche books multiple times. It's like seeing a very artsy, well done film, like a David Lynch film, Mulholland Drive, for example. You got to watch that movie 5 times to really get what's going on.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think that's the thing of like reading in general. Like
yeah,
if you're reading high quality, high level information,
yeah,
like it's the same. Movie is a perfect example. Like, but
yeah,
I just want to pull that thread. It's like
yeah.
you're taking a movie that you watch in an hour and a half that might have taken the director and the writer years to write and kind of put
Oh
together.
yeah, several years.
So to think that you can like fully appreciate and digest and learn what took maybe, and with books, maybe a decade to like come together, like you really don't understand. Like that's why I think it's interesting. It's like, yeah, like there's reading, the act of reading, and then there's like understanding. So you like there are people who study Nietzsche, right? Where they like their whole intellectual career has been like reading and digesting and understanding and pulling the thread, trying to get to the subtext. What did he mean by what he said? That's beyond just what he said. I mean, it's the same exactly. It's like that's why I think it's interesting when people are like, oh yeah, like I read the Bible. It's like, well, you mean did you read it and then like watching a TV show and then walk away, or do you read? Like, you know what I mean? Are you studying? That's the difference between reading something and studying something. And like, yeah, I mean, Jordan Peterson, I think when he doesn't read, he like immerses himself within the universe of the writer
Yeah,
or the thinker. But go ahead, sorry.
yeah, that's well said. Exactly, because what people don't understand about philosophy of that nature is there's definitely a romance and an emotional side to it.
Yeah.
It's not just this is the way the world is. This is what life means. It's not that pragmatic and what would be a word, pedestrian. It's not that pedestrian. There's layers, there's emotions and spirituality involved in it, and there's also fun because he has fun with the words. If you just look at the vocabulary he uses, obviously the translation from German to English, you lose a little bit of that,
Yeah.
but it's just that even in English, I read these books and it's like this guy is just like I wish I could write like this. This is should be the inspiration for my writing.
Well, I mean, probably syphilis and madness might be, I guess, the ingredients you need to incorporate to accomplish that goal. I don't know
Did
how
you say
you do that.
Sisyphus?
I think no. I think didn't he have syphilis? He had a
No, that's Camus wrote the myth of Sisyphus,
no,
which
not
is
Sisyphus. I'm talking about syphilis.
he was sick. Yeah, he had
He
syphilis. Yes,
yeah, he was
yes,
dying, right? Like
yeah,
the majority of his books that he wrote
mm,
that were like the pinnacles of his quote
yes,
unquote
yes. He
greatness.
was sick for
He
a
was
long.
very close to death, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right. You're right.
And
Yeah.
he like was going mad.
Yeah, so he was sick for a large portion of his adult life. He was
Yeah.
very ill. Yes.
But go ahead, keep going. Yeah, Nietzsche's an interesting guy. Like it's almost like it's one of those things where it's like you read something and you're like, oh, this is very amazing or deep, or you take it, whatever value you get from it. But then sometimes you got to take a second to like look at the man and his quality of life, and then decide if that's the type of person you want to emulate or not emulate. But go ahead. That's my 2
Yeah,
cents.
yeah. I thought you were trying to take me down Camus' path. I was like,
No, no,
that's a whole different
no, 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 no.
lane.
Not
Yeah.
Sisyphus, the Greek, the Greek
Yeah,
character
yeah.
with the stone he's trying to push uphill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
But
that's also could be parked. That's food for thought right there. I
yeah,
like Camus as well.
I know.
And, yeah,
That's why your mind went immediately.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no.
That's why. So what do you think about this? Because he did basically this book. If I were to summarize it, it's struggling between living in like this mortal coil in this world, as opposed to living as a spiritual being. So for Nietzsche, humanity for him is an expression of the will to become, to
Yeah,
realize what it means to be a human, and it's not to impose your will. So Lex and Jordan get into like kind of an argument about what it what
yeah.
is
What is
Nietzsche
the goal?
and what's the goal? Like
Yeah,
they use that word a lot.
yeah.
And is it to impose will and gain power, or is it to fulfill, like to become? That's the best way to be.
Well, yeah.
Go
Go
ahead.
no, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, and Jordan was wrestling with the fact that religion, how can I phrase this? Like the cost of being faithful, you have to deal with the confusion between what a goal is and what anxiety is. So that's which is a very, very powerful statement to me. Like it's, should religion be goal oriented, or should it be a belief in something to reduce your anxiety so that you can then realize what your humanity is?
Interesting.
That's
Interesting.
lot. There's a lot of meat on that bone.
Yeah, I need to go back because as Jordan Peterson has kind of evolved as far as his like
He's
I'm gonna
more
say,
of a theologian now.
yeah,
I would
coming
say.
to
Yeah.
Christianity. But like again, when I say like his interpretation of Christianity,
Yeah.
because I don't know, like anyone can identify themselves as anything until you kind of like start to pull the thread on like, well, what do you actually believe? Like I don't know what his actual beliefs are, but I just know that this is the epoch of his life. He does a lot on like the Bible. So that's one thing I'd say is like it's not a question of religion. It's like he's specifically coming from the perspective of Christianity. So Christianity
Yes.
versus, let's say, the philosophy of Nietzsche, right? And specifically Christianity.
Mhm.
Other religions might more align themselves with Nietzsche, right? If you have a very much a war-oriented religion like the Vikings, they might be like down the clown with like the Nietzsche, right? There's a lot of like, I think even people have said like Nietzsche was very much like the Uberman, right? Like the higher man,
Yeah.
the striving for, and also like this idea that like the higher man, like if you can achieve that, whatever that is, I think there's a lot of like debate as to what he meant by that, but that you essentially are above the like above the commonality, and that you kind of are now under a different set of like moral laws. Um, Crime and Punishment, which was written by Dostoevsky, I believe, was written in a sense to as an answer to some of the philosophies of Nietzsche. Like I may be really off for this, but I don't believe I am. That like Dostoevsky, like there was almost like a conversation taking place between Dostoevsky and Nietzsche in that book, as far as like the one of the characters was kind of like an Uberman. Like he thought that he was kind of above the morality of the commonality, and like how that played out in the long run. Did you read Crime and Punishment by chance, Rob? I'm gonna pontificate now. Yeah. So
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah,
no, sorry.
I haven't read it. I was
Okay.
listening to you, but
Anyway, so
I haven't
yeah,
read it.
I mean, I listened to a documentary recently on Nietzsche, and it was kind of interesting. It was like it just kind of went into his life. Like he had a very well, one, his father was a preacher, and as a young man, Nietzsche was like they called him. I think they called his nickname was like the little preacher or like the little theologian, something along those lines. So like this like deep religious sentimentality was kind of a part of his life that evolved, and he had like an interesting relationship with like Wagner, this German composer. So like I think you said it really well. It's like Nietzsche is like a very interesting like combination of like religious feeling and vigor, romanticism, and like this like almost I want to say like warrior masculinity.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that like he did not embody any of those qualities. So like that's another thing I think people find interesting with his philosophy, is that like what he writes about is like not qualities he had. It's more or less like qualities he aspired to have. And then
What he
became connected
valued.
with him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
what he valued. It's like someone. It's like in video. This is gonna be a poor analogy, but like in video games or comic books, all of the men are like jacked, handsome Chads, and all of the women are like beautiful, big-breasted women, right? But
It's
think about
like comic books. It's the same
exactly
thing.
comic books, right? But think about the people who write those comic books. They're usually not Chads. They're usually not the handsome, muscular men that get the big breasted, beautiful women. Like they're writing and drawing like what they aspire to be, or you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like kind of Nietzsche is like kind of that way. Like he's writing like this philosophy that's like what he cares about, but it's not a quality he has. It's like a quality he wishes to attain to. So I always thought that was like interesting, because a lot of people don't know, they know the writing of Nietzsche, but they have separated it from the character and real person that was Nietzsche. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that was no, you're right. Cuz and that's a good lead into this point where Jordan, I don't necessarily feel the same way as Jordan does, but Jordan believes that Nietzsche was wrong, like very wrong in his belief, and he expressed this uh, like frequently through his writings, that it's up to human beings themselves to develop the moral code and the standard of living, whereas
Yeah.
Jordan was saying maybe we should take some inspiration from the deities, that he calls it on high. We should listen to what came down from on high and not take it like to the letter word for word, but use that as basically an outline for it. And Nietzsche's like, no, it's up to the best humans to develop the moral code that we should live by.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's a dangerous game because
Correct.
we know what human nature is. Yeah.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, I
Yeah.
mean, Nietzsche wrote in like, what was it, the late 1800s, early 1900s?
Yeah, he was 19th century.
Let me see exactly. Friedrich Nietzsche. Because here's the thing, it's like, yeah, he died. Yeah, so he died in 1900.
Yeah, he
So
was
yeah, I
19th
mean,
century. Yeah.
yeah. So like, because he died at 55, I thought he died in his 40s. But anyway, so like, yeah, I mean, I, again, I'm not an expert of Nietzsche, so I do feel like I've heard comment oftentimes that like a lot of times Nietzsche gets a bad rap because of like a poor understanding of his philosophy. So like, I'll admit that like I probably have a poor understanding, but from what I understand, like a lot of his thinking was adopted oftentimes by groups where like it's power trumps morality, right? So like I think the Nazis, I think there was a lot of like an
Yeah,
increasing,
Hitler was reading Nietzsche for
right?
sure.
Because it's kind of like it's kind of like rule by the powerful, right? Because if you are the Uberman, then it's like you're not essentially limited by the morality of the common folk. You create your own morality, right? So it's like the person at the top of the food chain, they don't have to obey the same rules as everyone else. Actually, they're a law unto themselves, right? Whereas I think like Christianity or Judaism or like a lot of ancient, like what I guess Jordan Peterson's perspective is that morality does not, or it does not originate from humanity.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
was given to humanity. And like whether you believe that literally or like it's as a abstract idea, I think the benefit and the thing that Jordan Peterson would say is like then a human being can never be above what is moral, right? Because it's not human originating. It is the divine who originated or an alien that originated it, right? So it's kind of like you can't be like, well, I know more than them. It's like, no, you don't, because they're above you, right? Literally, as far as like when you look at think of the divine and the human. Whereas Nietzsche, I think his thing is like, no, morality is a originates with humanity. So if you are the Ubermensch, like you are the higher man, then you're above that morality. You create a morality in and of
Yeah, yeah.
yourself.
You set the tone. The humans should
Yeah.
set the tone.
And if I recall, like with Crime and Punishment, one of the characters, he kind of believed he was that person, and he kills someone. Not spoiler alert, and
Hmm.
goes kind of mad because of the guilt he feels in what he's done. He believed he had the moral authority to do it because he was like a superior man, and as a result, the guilt he feels like descends him into like almost madness. And at the end of the book, like he's finally kind of like confessed and is in like a Russian prison, and he feels, I might be misremembering, but this is how I remember. He feels like instant relief, and it's kind of like the takeaway from that is like he was never above this morality, right? Because that morality superseded him, was above him. And by thinking through like delusion that he was above it, he did something he shouldn't have done. And the weight of that drove him to madness until he accepted essentially that he had infringed upon like an immortal boundary line and felt relief in knowing that he was being punished for something he had done wrong. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
no.
Anyway,
That's profound. I've never read that book, but that's profound.
we
'Cause-
should read it together and talk about because it's been a long time, and I
yeah,
may be anyone listening to this. They might be, dude, you've forgotten this book. You're really wrong. I
yeah.
don't think I'm that far off, but yeah. I mean, it's an interesting thing, and I do believe there was some type of interesting relationship where either Nietzsche was responding to that book, or Dostoevsky was responding to something Nietzsche had written, because there's kind of like there's a battle of those two ideas, almost like Jordan Peterson's idea and Nietzsche's like idea in the characters in this book. And like Dostoevsky's kind of like writing out like, okay, like what from his perspective, what would happen if you thought this, and how would that actually impact a human being? But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. No. It gets back to the talking point which I wanted to raise. That's just it's so in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in Genesis, you have the Cain and Abel story, you have the Adam and Eve story. So freedom, so God gives you free will, which is what most people think separates human beings from a lot of other, from like basically plants and animals. They they have the ability to make choices and to think about the choices they make, and then they reap the rewards or the consequences of it. And but freedom stops at the moral code. So like eating the apple, eating the forbidden fruit. Yes, God gave humans the ability, free will, so that they can choose whatever, however they want to live their life. But there's a place, there's a line in the sand, whereas there's a moral code that still needs to be upheld. Now, most people get that from their faith and from the text and from the spiritual teachings. Whereas if you go from the Nietzsche angle, he's saying human beings need to implement that into society for themselves. So I don't know, man. Like that's a really hard question to answer. Like, what's better, taking it from and it gets, I don't know, I mean, we're going to get into the aliens and ancient astronaut stuff, which I don't want to get into because this is a more
Yeah,
this
trying to
is
keep
more
it
of
on
a serious
trying to
topic.
keep it on the planet,
Yeah.
terrestrial.
But I don't know what's
So
better.
what is your question? Go
My
back.
question is, what's better? Would it be better for the smartest? And I don't know how you measure morality, but I don't think you can, because anyone can hide it. Is it better for the smartest people to write out the moral code or whatever, however you would say, the rules of engagement? Or is it better to just feel it spiritually and take the lessons from the like the spiritual text?
Again,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a good question. I'll give you my perspective if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
So I think a couple things. One, I do think, again, like, let's see how I'm going to phrase this.
Yeah, it's a
I
hard
think,
question.
well, I think we have to add like specificity, right? Because like you can't just say spiritual. To me is like a very gray. It's like a gray thing, right? So let's just say like I'm going to use.
I would say then let me change it to the actual text and the teachings
Of a
from the past of a
okay.
specific discipline, the religion. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say one, that it very much depends on that religion and that text, right? Like there are different groups of human beings on the planet that, let's say, all believe that they are operating under the rules of a divine force, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say if that divine force is the one establishing the laws and the rules and regulations, then it very much is determinant on, like, you know, that God and that God's outlook on reality. Like I'm just speaking more, like trying to speak very like philosophically, right? So like if you have the Aztecs
Mm-hmm.
who believed in a divine ruler, right? Who also
Yep.
created precepts where that divine entity enjoyed the bloody hearts of sacrificed humans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then, like, let's think about the society they lived in. They hunted human beings, like, not even for slavery, to kill them, to
For
pull out their
sacrifice. Yeah.
hearts
Yeah.
and to feed their god blood, their own people's blood. So they made no distinction, but also all surrounding people's blood. So like, right. So that, again, like, so you could it definitely a important distinguishing characteristic, I guess you would say, is the religion and the text. Right. If we're going to hold all of these equal, right, it's like it very much determines on that. I would say if you're going to use, because again, Jordan Peterson is like, without him maybe using the words, he's speaking from a Judeo-Christian perspective.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And like, I think it's important, anyone who listens to him, like, you have to understand that, because that's like that's what he's saying. Like, when maybe he doesn't use those words, but that's the perspective he's coming from. In his eyes, which I think is true. Like, not all of these are held equal, right? So in the case of what you just described in like the Genesis story and things of that, free will,
Mm-hmm.
like an important tenet of Judeo-Christianity. So that's even Christianity, Judaism, and even Islam, right? I believe with Islam too. Like, the idea is that you don't feel like, if you like, the Bible is kind of clear on the fact of like human beings left to their own devices do not do good by design. Like,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
right? Like it's not like actually the opposite is true. Like they are led, and I'm gonna use the word sin, right? Or let's say breaking the rules. Like that is kind of their default, right? Like they're gonna go in that direction. So like in the Bible, right, in the Old Testament for the Jews, they were given essentially a laws, right? In their belief, like laws were given to them that would essentially show them what they should and shouldn't do. They still disobeyed the laws, but like someone had to tell them what to do and what not to do because they had the free will, but normally their free will led them towards doing the wrong thing, not the right thing, the wrong thing. So
Yeah.
their default was the wrong. So I think that's like, so if you believe that, then human beings left to their own devices are more often than not going to create like a moral society. They're going to create the opposite. If anything, a society where the strong rule the weak, right? Because that why would you not do that unless someone told you, hey, like take care of the person that's sick, take care of the widow, take care of these weak people who can't take care of themselves. Um, Natural selection or evolution would say, why would we take care of them? They're the weak ones. Like exploit them and destroy them. So
Yeah.
I think so. Like that's like I think maybe I'm rambling a little bit, but that's like I think a very important thing. Like in the Bible, in the Judeo-Christian, it's like no, people left to their own devices do
So
bad things.
there has to be a built-in code that's written.
Correct. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like the biggest thing, and also that the code doesn't stop them from doing bad things, right? It just creates consequences and also shows them that
Yeah, I
certain
was
things are bad.
yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I can't even say it anymore. I was going to say,
Yeah,
now
because
you
again,
know what you're doing is wrong.
Cor-
That's what it
cor-
means.
correct. I
Yeah.
mean, there's like a line in the old somewhere in the Bible, but it pretty much says that the law was given to you so that like sin, breaking the rules, let's just use that, would increase. It didn't decrease. It increased because it's like this. It's like if you have a little kid and you say, "Don't touch that thing," they touch that thing. If you had
Mhm.
never said anything, maybe they wouldn't have touched it. But now that they know that that's something that they're not supposed to do, you're more apt to touch it. It's like if someone says, "Hey, you shouldn't jaywalk," there's a high chance you're going to jaywalk, right? You know what I mean? It's like that's how human beings operate. I'm not going to explain why, but like it seems to be true. And I think most parents would admit that, right? Like, you tell your kid not to do something, that's high likelihood that that's the exact thing that they're going to do.
Yeah,
And
the
human beings are no different. Adults do the same thing.
yeah, the taboo
Um,
nature and the rebellious nature of humans is undeniable. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and I don't. You can go down any rabbit hole to decide to determine why that is a thing. The Bible does answer that question, but like, yeah, so like that's why I think you would say like if morality originates with humanity, like those are two conflicting ideas because the Bible would say no, it wouldn't work, right? Because
It's impossible for that to work. Yeah.
no, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And something I think that we lose sight of is that, and I think Nietzsche even kind of comments on it, is like because there's that misquote from him that like God is dead and like no one can wash away all of his blood. Like
Mhm.
it's always taken as like a positive and it's like a negative. It's saying like if God is dead and God is the one that gives morality to people, then where will morality come from? So like
Yeah.
again, the idea that like human beings can originate morality. Again, it's like okay, well it depends on what those human beings believe. A, and if you believe that you supersede, you're the Ubermensch, then you can do anything, right?
It
Because
gives
you're
you a
like,
license to do whatever you want. Yeah.
you're right. So you're like, you know what? I
It's
think I'm
very
right.
yeah.
Let's just conquer all of these people. They're wrong. And there's no one can say, well, no, that's not right to do. It's like based on who's right. I'm above you, so I create my own morality. Whereas from a biblical perspective, or let's say Jordan Peterson's perspective, you can say, no. There is a divine force in the world that has identified that this is not right, and you do not supersede that. Therefore, no matter how you look at it, you're underneath that law. You can still do what you want to do, but you can't identify it as moral. All right, I'm done. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. But that goes back to the notion. I believe they discussed this in that show as well. It's a great show, everyone. You should watch. That's a very thought provoking and evocative that
Good
show.
word.
Yeah, and so now here's where here's the takeaway I had. If it's a good idea that's used by bad people in a bad way, that doesn't dispel the moral value of the good idea. And that's what I think Nietzsche is. Nietzsche put out good ideas. Some people, bad people, use them nefariously to justify their actions.
Well,
That's
what would be the good idea that
the,
they misused?
the good idea is, let's say you have intuition power and humans basically being the regulators of what the moral code should be. That was co-opted by the wrong people to do the wrong things. Now, I think I would believe that I would say the soul, the human intellect and the soul has the ability to do the right thing and set the right rules of conduct. However, there's too many, to your point. So I'm guessing I'm disagreeing with you, but I'm kind of agreeing
Yeah,
with
I
you
was
at the
gonna
same
say
way.
we're kind of
Yeah,
like dancing between two
you
sides.
can't. There's too many bad actors in the world for that not to be tainted and misconstrued in the wrong way.
Yeah, but again, it's like again, and anyone who's a Nietzsche expert, like I'm not, like who am I? But I guess just as a layperson, I would say those people aren't. They're actually so like. How can you? I guess the thing is this: you're making like a moral judgment on a people, but like I would say like with the Nietzsche, based off your like what you've explained from that episode, if they are more powerful than another group, then they define the morality. So the fact is like inherently in that, right? Like they are right then, and who are we to say that they're wrong?
Yeah,
Like again, that's because it's like almost like you're trying to apply like a divine morality. Like you're using that as the root. Like the soul has a divine morality, so it knows what's right and what's wrong. And I think with Nietzsche, it's kind of saying like, no, that's an old-fashioned way of thinking. It's the Urmensch decides what's right and what's wrong.
yeah,
So
yeah.
then, if you're not the Urmensch, you can't even judge like if something is right or wrong, right? So if Genghis Khan comes and he says, "I am the hammer of God and I've conquered all of you,"
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
can
But
you even say that he's wrong? It's like, well, I mean, I guess he did conquer us. He says he's right. Like, guess he's right. I don't know. Like, that's where I get kind of lost in his thinking.
yeah. But that's a fair point. But however, I would say if we
Because
don't
the
know
soul, who put this
yeah,
morality
we
in the
don't
soul?
know enough about it concretely to say that one way is better or the other, because religious faith and preachings and teaching can also be corrupted by humans,
Absolutely,
which we've seen in
100%.
Catholicism. Just a
We've seen it with
with
probably every
everyone.
religion that's
Yeah.
ever
So
taken root
which
amongst us.
way is better? That's the ultimate question. That's why it's like, I don't know, man. It could go either way. I don't have
But
the answer, obviously, but
it is interesting if
yeah.
you think about it that, to my knowledge, many cultures, not most, like no, I say many, like there are certain underlying principles that do seem like for example, I mean, okay, I don't want to overextend because I can't say I know all cultures, but like murder. Most civilizations that I have read about, they in their laws there was some identification that murder was wrong.
Mhm.
They might redefine, like, it might just be murder of the citizen or murder of people within the tribe, but outside of that, it's okay, right? So that might change, or that like stealing, like most societies, I believe, like stealing is somehow punishable. Now you might be able to go raid someone else, but like within our community, if you take, like, that's a punishment, right? So those are like kind of commonalities that you find almost like worldwide. And so it's kind of interesting. You got to wonder, it's like, why is it that like there are certain precepts that seem to be common amongst, I don't know, I'm rambling now. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. We didn't even get halfway through my
Yeah.
cards here, so we
Maybe
got to
let's do
do
a
a part two.
two.
we got to do a part 2 to this one
Maybe
because
we'll read, like, maybe you can pick one of Nietzsche's books that you think is like, this is like the pinnacle of like his thinking, and we'll both read it and then actually have a discussion, like from the text when it's like fresh in
yeah,
our mind.
I already know which one I'm gonna give you. Yeah,
Which
I
one would
got
it
it.
be?
It's called The Gay Science,
Oh, okay.
but gay, the weird science.
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
joyful,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Is that the is that like his pin? Because I know there's that one. There's like
There's
Zoroaster,
yeah,
something. Yeah.
Siddhartha, and Beyond Good and Evil, and The Gay Science are probably the 3 biggest ones.
Yeah, okay,
Uh,
maybe we'll do that. Let's pick like throw. Let's do it. Like pick a book if it's the gay science, and then let's throw like a date out at some point where we like, all right, we got to finish it by
yeah,
this point and actually do like a conversation from the document.
yeah, exactly. And so one last thing, and then I want to do a quick UFC 310 preview.
Sounds good.
There's and Lex said so. You once again, folks listening. Chris Corvo again. First of all, we got you put. I've been watching the shorts. Whenever you put political, you get we got about 80 views. But then when you put aliens, it got like 200 views.
Yeah, I saw that one. I put
I'm telling you,
the
people love
ancient
that
aliens
shit.
180. I was
Yeah.
like, people love
Whoa.
ancient aliens, man.
Yeah,
There we
I'm
go.
telling you, this is. I mean, I'm not surprised. And so Friedman says what you said a couple months ago, where he goes, the future of political, like how to gauge a political candidate is you got to sit down for a long form interview and have a conversation for 2-3 hours. He says it, and Lex was like, this is the way, because outside of an hour is when things start to leak and you start to see who the person really is.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you caught that months ago, and then Lex is talking to Jordan Peterson about it. He's like, this is the future. You're going to have to, there's going to be no more debate. Well, there'll still be debates, but that'll be secondary. And all these clips, I think you call them catchphrases, like little short catchphrase clips, and these like mudslinging commercials.
Yeah.
The future is you're going to have to sit down with Lex Friedman for 3 hours and talk to him.
Yeah.
And you can't have control of the questions. You can't have control of the time. You're just going to have to sit down and have a 3-hour conversation, human to human. Done.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. The other interesting thing is that, like, in the not too distant future, one of these elections, like in our lifetime, that person will have their whole life recorded in social media.
Yeah,
we haven't hit that yet, but like that'll be interesting. Where like you won't be able to like talk, like hide your past, because like when you were 14, you were on Instagram recording recording yourself. So it'll be kind of interesting. What will that be like when you can't really hide your past, but you're still gonna have to duck and weave through it. So like it'll be an interesting experience to see like the person who's 13 now, when they're like 33 or 40, when they're running for some type of political office, like, dude, they're gonna have their whole life on social media, and they're gonna have to comment and like talk about it. Like, why were you dressed like why were you doing this at this time? And like you can't be like hide your past. You're gonna have to talk about it. You're gonna have to have like 3-hour conversation where you admit faults, admit where you change your mind on something, admitted when you were stupid when you were 16 and now you've grown up. But like we have the record. So like it'll be I think it'll be positive, actually.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you're going to have to learn how to navigate those waters I think the new generation is going to be able to handle it because they grew up in that environment.
Yeah.
But like now, even the next election, you're going to have people running that don't have social media, grew up in a completely different era. So they're going to have to do it. They're going to have to get out of their comfort zone, and you're going to have to sit down with it's not even I'm not even talking about like Tim Dillon. Like you're going to have to just sit down with someone. It could be anyone. You're going to have a live, unedited 3-hour conversation with someone, and you're going to you can't massage and manufacture the questions and the time. You're just going to have to we're going to find out who you really are.
Yeah.
So
well said.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing too. So 310 is tomorrow.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
let's talk about this. I have it up right now. I'm looking at the cards.
Yeah, I'm only interested in the prelims. There's a good one because Weidman is fighting. He's back. Chris Weidman. He's 40, man.
Dude, this is a good. Even the prelims.
The prelims are good. Yeah, I like Sterling too. What about Weidman? What are your thoughts on Weidman?
Let me look up real quick. Okay, hold on. So I'm looking at. Let me look at the main card. Weidman, is he fighting?
He's in the early prelims, so it's on.
He's in that. Oh, yikes. Okay, so he's not.
Yeah, but he's
on his way out, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, he's 40, dude.
Yeah, I mean, dude, even the early prelim is crazy. So yeah, so I think the Weidman, I think he broke his. No, this is his second fight back since he broke his leg.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see. I don't really have much of an opinion on him. I've heard him talk. I've seen a couple of his fights. I think I saw the fight recently when he broke his leg. He actually broke someone's leg, and then he also had his leg broken. Kind of interesting. But I'm looking at. Let's look at the prelims. Let's see.
I like Sterling. He's one of my favorites.
So that should be an interesting fight. Yeah. I think I've seen this guy fight the most of our. Yeah, I've seen him fight. He's good. He's actually really good. Yeah. I think he's more of a striker. And Aljamain Sterling is obviously he's like an extremely good wrestler, grappler. So that should be interesting. Look, Mossar,
he's undefeated
I would say 18 wins, 0 losses. That's pretty impressive. But dude, Aljamain 24 wins, 4 losses, pretty damn good.
He's very good career. But then you have guys who fought like Volkov, who has like 50 fights. Man, look at this guy.
Yeah, so again, I think we talked about this. Like one thing that people kind of like joke about is the fact of like when you come from another country.
Yeah, he's Russian.
Like there's no one like commenting like on your wins because these are professional wins. They're not wins in the UFC. They're just professional wins. Uh-huh. So let's say you're fighting in some like, once Soviet satellite country, like in a quote unquote you know what I mean? You don't know who the competition was, if it was good or whatnot. So, but he's good. So that'll be interesting. I like Cyril Gane. So like that should be an interesting fight to watch.
That's a good heavyweight matchup.
He is like an incredibly good striker.
And then the 2 fights that I care about, like Gary and Shavkat, he's another. He's one of the Muslim Russians. He's another one.
Yeah, but he's more like I would say he's less the Russian, the Muslim Russian. He's like a straight up like Mongolian horse archer. Like this guy is like, I think he's from either Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan.
He's Kazakhstan. Yeah,
he is like a horse rider, nomadic warrior. Like they're even a different game. That's a different game. That's like, you know how like for most people the Russian, it's like let's look at the hierarchy, right? It's like white guy has to go, like American has to go fight someone. He's like, oh man, I don't want to fight a Russian. Damn it, I don't want to fight a Muslim Russian. And then there's the Trump. I don't want to fight this nomadic barbarian who rides horses. He's like the guy who scares even the Muslim Russians.
Right. Wow.
Dude, this guy has 18 wins. None of them are by decision.
He's finished everyone.
He's finished every single person he's fought in battle. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy because I've never seen Gary as an underdog. I like Gary, but he's a heavy underdog in this one.
And he's a great striker, but he's won many fights on decisions. This guy has fought everyone, and everyone he's fought, he has either submitted or it's like a TKO. They cannot fight again. So that means he's killed 18 people.
Yeah, this is that one.
Like when you essentially you killed them because like they could not fight you. So in real life, you would have choked them to death, or you would have beat them till they just were not alive anymore.
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't think I've ever seen. Let me look at his profile. I don't think I've seen Shavkat Rakhmonov. I don't think I've seen him fight live.
I like him a lot.
His nickname is the Nomad.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, like he is a. Yeah, it's a different game, man.
Yeah, I saw this fight. I saw him fight Stephen Thompson. I saw that one. I remember him now. Yeah.
I mean, dude, he's like they asked him like dumb question. They're like, "What's your favorite animal?" He's like, "My favorite animal is a horse." "What's your favorite food?" "Horse meat." I was like, "That's it's crazy. Kind of a gangster answer, dude."
And then
I love you.
Yeah,
I love to eat you as well.
Yeah, I'm taking Shavkat. definitely.
I
Even
I
though I
think
like Gary, even though
I
I
think
like
he's gonna win. I mean, even like on some of the podcasts I listen to that are like MMA, they're like, we like Ian, but Shavkat's gonna kill you.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And then the main event,
Bryce Mitchell, and Kron Gracie. That could be an interesting, good fight. Actually,
yeah, Bryce is okay. I like him.
he's a very good jiu-jitsu fighter. Kron Gracie is from the Gracie family. Like they're like
He's Brazilian,
Brazilian
right?
jiu-jitsu royalty.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like the last of the Gracie family. So that'll
But
be
I'm
interesting.
looking at the odds. Chris Bryce is heavy favorite. Heavy favorite.
It'll be interesting. Kron is not very good. I mean, I don't want to say that. Look, he doesn't fight that much. 5 wins, 2 losses. He doesn't fight a lot in the UFC. But if they just get into a jiu-jitsu match, he's excellent at jiu-jitsu. So it could be interesting.
Yeah, all right. And then the main event. I don't like flyweight doesn't really do it for me. Yeah.
I don't
But
care.
but
I mean, Pantoja's good.
Panto is good. He's good. Very good.
Yeah. He's like a very good jiu-jitsu. I think he's a good wrestler. That might actually be fun to watch, but if they get into like a grappling fight.
See, but this is what I think after I watched one of his fights, I asked you, it's like this guy, because I'm like 6'1", 180. This guy's 5'5", 125, and you were like, no, he'll still kick your ass. He's 5'5", 125.
Yeah, these are tiny guys, man.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, dude, that's why I think it's interesting with fighting. It's like, it's a skill. Like, it's a skill.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, it's a skill. So like, if you don't know what to do with your body, and someone is tinier than you but is an expert at like manipulating their body, like, and considering what they're trying to do, it's like not like gymnastics. It's like they become experts in knowing how to get their foot in your face and get their fist in your face,
Yeah.
and then choke the life out of you. Like, you're just gonna die quickly and then be a heavy sack of potatoes falling to the ground.
Yeah, what's the saying? Like once you get them to the ground, everyone's the same height. It doesn't matter.
That's true. It's like exactly. Once you're on the ground, it's like, all right, dude, like you're done. I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah. So
yeah. Nate, this should be a good fight. Keep an eye out on this one. Try to watch it. The Nate Landwehr. It's the second. It'll probably be the prelim. It'll be the first main card fight.
Yeah,
he's good. He's good, man. He is a striker. I think he's from like Louisiana or like North Carolina. He's got like a little like a twang in his accent. His voice. He's a great fighter, and it's interesting. Like I think he's from Louisiana. He started his career fighting, I think, in like Russia. He started fighting professionally in Russia somehow.
Yeah.
He's a very fun fighter, very good.
Yeah, I'm looking at his fight history. Yeah, he fought in XFC. Is that Russian?
Yeah, that might be like Eastern European. So yeah, Russia, and then some of these other like satellite.
His last pay-per-view, he lost to Dan Ige.
Yes, yeah, I think he's lost.
I think I've watched this fight. Did I watch this from Vancouver? No,
he's good.
I didn't.
Mean, he's fun to watch. I mean, they're fighting 145.
Yeah, his last main card fight was Amanda Nunes' last fight against Aldana when she retired after that. That was his last fight. So Ige is good though. That's not a bad loss.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I think the winner of the Shavkat Ian Machado Gary will be fighting Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy. And then Islam, I think, is 311 coming up.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, Makachev. Yeah, but the whole card hasn't come out yet.
I'll be watching this. I'm going to come home tomorrow from the city, and I'll definitely try to watch all these fights.
It starts at everyone will be there. It's in Las Vegas. It's in the UFC
it'll
dome.
Be a big one.
Yeah. All right,
cool. Ladies and gents, thank you for tuning in. Hope you get a chance to watch the UFC fights, and then join us again next week.
Peace out.